All right.
Sweet.
All right. You can grab your chair and then, so welcome. My name's Dennis Higgins. I'm a staff member here at Centenary, as well as one of the people who helped Erica put this on. So thank you guys for supporting and coming out and making the first CycloneCon a far bigger success than we ever thought it would be. So, you know, for a bunch of people that were flying by the seat of our pants, for it to come off this good has been just really, but it's all thanks to you guys. So today, what we're gonna do is have a little conversation about game design. Again, when I am not working in disability services or adjuncting anything from statistics to role-playing games. I do role-playing game design, but what we are doing here is to talk about video game design, because you know every design, while there's common theory, is very different. And while we can look at a lot of stuff online that says this is what you need to do to design a game, there's a lot of this stuff that maybe isn't as easy to find on the internet, and we just want to basically have a conversation like that. So I've got a few questions that I'll start with, and then we just want to include you guys in the conversation. So if there's things that you are curious about, or we'll help where we can, and we'll go from there. So I guess we'll start with Matt, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey from game player to game developer.
All right. You braced? You ready? It's a long journey. Yeah, wow. So hi, I'm Matthew Allen Estock, currently branded as Matty Allen Estock, and I've probably been playing video games since I was 3, 4, I don't know, a long time. Lifetime video game player. I had the old Nintendo in my parents' basement and everything. It was great. In high school, as a kid, we had a Windows 95, so you play with your MS Paint and you do them like that. Having played games on there too, that developed towards playing a lot of Doom and modding Doom. And getting into it, kind of programming and figuring stuff out through that. And then I found software called GameMaker, and it's been around for 20 plus years, I think, at this point. And that's the software that I use. And that sparked my brain towards writing software. Like that became just like, I'm going to be doing stuff like this for life. So that led to working on websites, because it's also inherently kind of a design thing, and learning all those languages to be able to put the thing on the screen. It's like the exciting part of software for me, and I worked on both that and a little bit of the game stuff on the side, but I knew that web stuff was going to be my focus, my career, to make money, to do this kind of stuff, making video games. Yeah, I don't know if I'm rambling or not.
No, and I think you one of the things that you were talking about makes a lot of sense with kind of modding culture, and making that, Doom was the first game that I can think of that really had a strong modding culture with it. So what was it about modding that started you learning languages?
Sure. I looked, having played Doom I didn't play it when it came out in '94. I was 3 years old. But growing up and being a teenager, and
played it.
The rock and roll and violence that Doom is, I played it a lot. But having seen where, I was like, I want to play more of this. I like the first person shooter, like, mechanically. and that kind of just introduced me to people who share their mods online. I'm like, I want to see what I can put together, and again, from the MS Paint days, like
Right.
as a youngin', and then growing into being like, oh, I know how to MS Paint already. So what's the next thing I learned? I learned how to do, I think it's ACS scripting and decorate code, and those are two different languages that you learn to mod and do. It's just how it is. I don't know. How you learn that is you look up websites and you see that. That's the language that they need, and finding documentation on stuff. All of this is, of course, possible from good documentation. If you've ever been a programmer, it's your best friend. Be able to look up what a different language is, or examples on how to use the language and express yourself in whatever software that you're making.
Okay. And where have your day job programming and your passion programming overlapped?
Where have they?
Or haven't they?
No, they have. They actually have. So, I had a job at a company for 7 years, local, and I was basically the solo web developer, web programmer of sorts. So it was a kind of whatever the boss and owner wanted to work on as a project, and we knew we had the tools to do so. That's what we worked on doing. So I learned via WordPress how to make WordPress tick as PHP, is the code language that's underneath it, and got to knowing that so that I could express myself there, make stuff, actually make a game sorts of interface using WordPress.
Okay.
It's gone nowhere. No one will ever see that piece of code. But I made that to prove a point that I could build something like that. So I was even building a game in WordPress to start to have that crossover. Naturally, that part of my portfolio, my resume, was what piqued the interest of that long-term job there.
Okay.
So, of the owner, really, it's like that means you like doing this. Because you don't just make a game engine for WordPress unless you like doing that kind of stuff.
You don't find a new use for a software that has really kind of one main goal,
Right.
and using it for something completely different, unless you really enjoy both. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Unless you tick like I tick, I guess.
Yeah. Cool.
These are all unique answers. I've never had this kind of an interview before. So it's kind of interesting, yeah.
Right. So coming from a game design, kind of more of the theoretical side of game design and game studies, video games are kind of unique because in addition to the game mechanic, there's also the visual component of it.
Sure. Which a
Where
board
do you-
game has.
What's that?
Which a board
Right,
game and
board
card
games
game
do have
definitely
and
do
definitely
some of
a lot of those other games have, but it's
It's evolved over
It's
the
a
years.
different
Back in the day,
style.
we didn't have that. It was
Right.
pencil and paper, but
Right.
now these board games are printed and they're
Right.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
Okay,
And-
sorry.
Oh yeah, no. You make a great point. And the visual presentation of a game and the mechanics are separate.
Sure.
Is really the key point.
Yeah.
Which
I've
one's
only
first
just
for you?
learned that.
Okay.
If you believe it or not, I've learned that, and I've been applying that to stuff I've been building.
Okay.
Even that philosophy has helped so much being a game programmer, I think.
Okay.
Key
Well,
point.
how'd you come to that?
Because so the space sim that I'm working on the side, which to those that know how much I paid for the trademark, would think is crazy, but I worked on this space sim and I just used it. I use it as a tool to learn the separation between what I wanted to see visually on screen and how to code that in the most optimal, optimized, organized kind of a way. and the new versions of Game Maker like changed dramatically how you can write the code in their language. They beefed it up. They've given us more tools to work with of a sort. And to be able to separate that, I have this spacing thing that no one's ever seen. I've maybe streamed it once, but I found it very compelling that I made a star, then I made a plane, and then I made a sector, an area of space, and then I just multiplied that 5, 6, 7 to see how far I could travel in space. I made a space game, guys. But there's so much of the technical part they're in making it work programmatically to have like this large galaxy that I can travel and not break memory limits of the computer. I can only be 2 to the 20th away in integers before floating point errors take away.
Right.
So it was both a programming challenge of like making the concrete items and being able to multiply that, and then but also maintain that the artistry is just a step on top of it.
Gotcha.
Like how much I can represent with single strings of text to make a galaxy. It's like that's I don't know. Right. I don't know what the original point is.
Well, actually, what I was originally going to ask you was, like when you're doing Kingdom Bash.
Yeah.
Do you go gameplay first, or do you go kind of the visuals of it first?
Good question. I think for me, I think it started with the game idea, the game loop. What is the player doing? And yeah, I would say like the coding. So coming from a more programming background, that's how I'm approaching it. It's like, okay, how can I slap this together by hammering on a keyboard long enough?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like figuring out what the code is and getting it in place and having it work. There are things that I can do now that I definitely did not do right, or I would do differently in the Bash already. It's been 9 years.
Right.
I'm a different person. So yeah, I think more in terms of the programming and the gameplay before the art. Okay. I think with Kingdom Bash specifically, it was I started with the simple idea of like, okay, I can move characters around and can I make it look isometric and have that work. Once I saw that could work, I was like, okay, now I can like, all right, let's make a little like battle or something. And that's kind of how it started, because I wanted to make a game that I could play with my friends.
Right.
And 10 years ago, that was something I could do in and out of college.
Right.
Like I had access to friends that I could bring and play test to.
Right.
And play, excuse me. So, yeah.
Okay. So you were saying Game Maker, and you said you'd been using it for a long time. What was your thinking in choosing the particular engine or language that you were going to program in?
Game Maker. I think so. Back now, when I probably started, would have been like 2004 or 5. Might have been like maybe when I got the computer in my room and I started like being able to spend more hours on it. Dad didn't like the clicking of the mouse in the family room, so when I graduated to here, have the computer, have the old one, I got to work. And Game Maker was one of the earliest, you know, like how to make a game probably is what I Googled at the time. Was Google even around then?
Yes.
You know, like, and I was like, how to make a game, and then, you know, Game Maker was what came up. It seemed the most approachable. There was other stuff out there at the time. Even games, RPG Maker is like a game on some consoles back in the day. And I think I'm too rowdy out there.
Well, if you can just keep like maybe the trash can there, because it does lock. That's why. And I don't have my sweater. Sorry.
Yeah, Game Maker is the one that stood out to me.
Okay.
Between that and like Doom, like finding
Right.
resources on like how to make different stage. Like, oh, I loaded this file and now I'm playing in a different world. That's so
Right.
exciting to me. How do I do that?
Right.
And, figuring those stuff out. So it's kind of those the availability of it, and at the time
Right.
was what came up and it seemed approachable and I could do it.
And you were able to kind of stick with it because it was the familiar
Right.
one. Because I know now, like what most games are either in Unity, which has its issues,
It's caveats, yeah.
and or Unreal,
Yeah.
which
and power to them, the
Yeah.
people that like are able or willing or want or can learn something like Unreal and do it solo. Like,
okay, yeah,
if people even are,
right,
congrats to you. It's so it feels harder to learn those even today. Mechanically, those engines are feel to me less approachable than Game Maker. Game Maker is like Game Maker and Godot, which is another one that's out now. Has made a presence that has better out of the box 3D support, but like it also has a workflow that's reminds me a little too much of Unity's workflow and thus also with Unreal. Like those engines are just so complicated. They do so much stuff out of the box, but I feel like that limits me because they already kind of they set you up for so much stuff. That sounds weird. I like how closer to the metal Game Maker is. Like I have to draw the sprite on the screen. I have to render the 3D model and make sure that I'm in the right pipeline and all these other stuff. But it's all code.
right.
And I feel like that's harder to do with the other softwares nowadays.
Right, right. And coming from a coding, programming mindset,
Right.
it's more of a tool for artists with some of these other ones that let you do these amazing things.
Sure.
But from a programming code
Yeah.
head standpoint.
Right. I feel like I'm closer to the metal and
Yeah.
can do more of that stuff freely, prototype faster.
Right.
In fact, yeah. So that's I think the more poignant point is that Game Maker is known to be one of the faster engines you can like prototype with. It's like a known. And if you look at the stats on game jams that are cross-platform or cross-engine game jams, an overwhelming majority of the better like ranked games or quickly to make games and the faster games are Game Maker games. So I'm just like, that's the engine to be at, boys. I don't know. I like working with it, so.
Yeah, and I only have a few more questions before we kind of open it up to people. But one of them is with game jams. Maybe tell a little bit more about what they are, for
Sure.
people who might not know, and
Sure.
also did they have a role in Kingdom Bash's genesis?
Fair. Good question. Thank you. I would say so. A game jam is a contest over a weekend of sorts, contest or not, ranked or not. It's a challenge where you get, let's say, 48 hours or 72 hours or however long for the period of the contest. You start and finish a game from scratch. Which to someone like my crazy brain, that sounds exciting and fun. It's a challenge to work and complete something from scratch. Like, that was a black screen only 20 hours ago, and now it's this fun thing that you get to play. Isn't that crazy? Like being able to do that. It's definitely inspiring. And that's maybe why Kingdom Bash hasn't gone so far, is because I basically started my first project as Kingdom Bash and worked through it. But game jams, I use game jams to experiment with another style of programming or a different art style, something that wasn't confined to the bounds of what I needed to make for Kingdom Bash.
Was it good for like directions you wanted to take Kingdom Bash into, or more just completely different
Like,
theoretical?
Sure, it's maybe a little bit of both. I think having learned as much as I know now about 3D and the pipeline for that, it can and would make Kingdom Bash better had I done it the way I know I would do it now. Even though it's 2D, it would look nearly identical to what you see today. But my crazy brain wants to recode the display pipeline to make it use the new stuff that we now know, and it'll make it run better too. It's even crazier. It's going to run better and look better. But it's because I've learned a totally different way of approaching the graphics pipeline
From the game jams.
from the game jams. Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions about game design? Are you guys in that world, or just something that was interesting to you? Or
You said you were starting, right?
Well, I mean, I've been in game development for a long time,
Right.
and I'm
Okay.
taking another attempt at indie,
okay,
so I can, so I don't have questions. No, but I'll talk more with
Yeah,
him. I
I'd
mean,
love to chat with you.
it's some of the points you bring up. I've actually been thinking about this recently. Of like, I'm in Unity. I've been in Unity for a long time. I've done Unreal Engine a long time ago. I've done all sorts of different engines, but being more in code, right? Like with Unity, you have the IDE, and like if I'm trying to find something, I'm like, oh crap, I gotta go through all these menus, all these windows.
You have to use Unity's interface to be able to get stuff done.
You do, but you
You can write code outside of it, but it's very I feel like object oriented.
Sort of like you're saying, separating the data from the visuals. I mean, there's times
Yes.
I was thinking, I had little prototypes that I've written that were like, because if you wanted to have big scale, like something like GTA, until recently, Unity couldn't support that easily.
Right.
So I would be like, I was thinking like, I write the data my way, I write the game my way, and Unity I just use as a presentation layer, as a way to display what's on screen.
Yeah.
It's sort of emulating what a traditional engine would do, where you're doing everything yourself and you just kind of render what you want. So basically, just if it's a 2D game, you would just say, okay, I'm going to update these sprites here,
Right.
but I'm managing the world state, everything myself, and not letting Unity do it, unless you want to have Unity do it. Like, I mean, it's it's got physics, so it has a lot that it could do for you easily.
Yeah.
But if you want to scale your game in a certain way that pushes the limits, there's some frustrations there. So, so it's cool. There's some resonance there.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, and
Yeah.
when you're talking about space and like wanting to,
The space sim is so cool, guys.
Yeah.
It's so cool to me. I don't know. I can create galaxies now. It's so wacky. Like the scale of it. I know it's so minor. Literally, a planet right now is just a ball of color, but I can go to it, and then I can go to that ball of color over there. That seems so nuts, right? But like if you built it, you're like, I feel so awesome, so powerful to be able to do
you're
that.
a god. You're
Right,
creating a
yeah.
universe.
I'm making a universe. It's cool. I don't know.
I mean, my first computer was a VIC-20, so I've grown up with the span of what was possible, and like even what you're talking about wouldn't have been possible in a game.
No. Well, one of the inspirations for this space sim is BBC's Elite, 1984.
Which was, it was on Commodore 64.
Yes, that's
those old boxes that you're talking about.
No,
That's
Elite,
what it ran on. Which
Elite,
is nuts.
Elite was a Higgins family staple. My dad loved that, like to the point where
we're going to be best friends after this.
he would come up with databases on a Commodore 64. Not something that's easy to do databases on.
No, it's annoying.
To like properly like manage like trading lanes in Elite.
Oh, interesting.
And also he would do these weird like break the game things. There's a game Trade Wars and Yankee Trader.
Okay.
They were text-based BBS games.
Yeah.
and my dad figured out a way to script things that would basically map the galaxy.
Yeah.
And like use that to figure out, space lanes and stuff. So yeah, those kind of commerce simulators are, that's what I grew up with.
That's
so
funny.
those
That's
are
so
good
funny.
times.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll have to see the spaces.
Yeah.
I think I have a build on the laptop.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
catch me around 4 and I'll spin it up. It's really interesting, yeah. The space and being able to move things from one point to another in code is so trivial. When you think of like having built that system, that it's all just boxes. I'm just putting data in boxes is like truly what that glorious, what the system is, how I'm writing it. And to be able to say like, yeah, like I just moved, but to be able to separate that, having the data that way, where it's so simple, and then being able to put the art on top of that, it makes it the satisfying thing. Like, yes, my character, in math terms, my character moved, 2 to the 12th in a certain direction,
Right.
and all the math that is to calculate all that stuff. But then, so I'm at this planet now, and I'm going to move this number over to this number. Like, in its most core simple, it's just like solving a math problem of data, and being able to put the presentation in the code, the video aspect of it is like that's what makes it so crazy.
To the point where you are going from planet to planet, as opposed to your set of numbers is going to this.
It's interesting to visualize both of those parts of how that's how
the
that
underlying physics and the visual presentation.
Right.
Yeah. How about you? I know you've been quiet. Are you interested in game design?
Yeah, I've dabbled in it a little bit. I'm still fresh, pretty new to it though, so.
Okay. Any questions or?
No, not really.
Okay.
What have you dabbled in?
I usually did like just more like of the helping out work with it.
Okay.
So I don't have any personal games of mine,
Okay.
but I've helped out with a handful of my friends' projects.
Cool. Like
So-
programming or art or music or.
I'm kind of like, I can't do music or art, but I do a lot of the programming
Okay.
and modeling for it.
Oh, modeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too, even how 3D modeling, having picked it up over the last couple of years, again, is a part of an extension of trying to like see what else I can do to make my products better, my game ideas better. And yeah, there's a lot of there is almost a programming aspect to the 3D modeling part of it too. Like you do have to watch your numbers and make sure your distances are right and all this other stuff. I make low poly stuff personally, but it's a lot of it's an interesting skill to have, the 3D modeling part of it. That's cool. What about you?
I'm just catching on, so I'm
Okay.
trying to become more relevant
Okay.
in communicating with a couple of people
Yeah.
I know, a couple of young people I know, early 20s, who are very much into video gaming. And I'm trying to get to a point where I understand a little bit more about it and what goes behind, what goes into the making of games and designing games.
Yeah.
So I have like 1,000 questions. I'll start with
Please.
3 maybe.
Sure, go for it.
Like, it is, what is it, Game Maker?
Yes.
Like, you have a background in coding, right?
Effectively, yeah.
Before you open Game
Before I open Game Maker, yes.
Okay, so can anybody just like open Game Maker and
Start making
start
stuff?
creating without having any kind of background?
Yes, so that's the other fun feature about Game Maker is it has 2 ways of interfacing with it. It has the traditional code language, well, I say traditional, it has a code language of sorts that when you write into that, you write in that language, that code language, you will make games. The other version is drag and drop, and it's written in a way the interface has a series of actions and events. So like how you start to wire your brain up on how to make the game is when I press the up button, make Mario go up. I made the jump. That's that first mechanical step, like logic of the flow of an action and a reaction, an action and an event that occurs because of it. And it's between that and a constant game loop. Every frame that is printed onto the screen, I'm processing some kind of mathematical position of something or other, but that can be done logically with the every frame event, or every frame action do event thing. So I don't know if that explained much, but it's wiring your brain to that. That drag and drop is something that if someone sat there and knew what they wanted to make, you would start with that. And that's in part what made Game Maker easier for me. But between that and like the Doom modding and seeing examples and being like, if I type this thing, it does that other thing. That's how I learned. Like that, I think that core moment of like picking it up and saying, how do I make that? And asking questions and Googling and finding out where it's been done before. If they made the language, someone's done something with it. What's the term? If you bring the party and then people show up or something like that.
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
There's the languages there, and they built it and wrote that code to be able to allow other people to write in that code for that reason. So what can you make with that, I guess?
And one thing kind of with that, programming languages are languages, no different than Spanish or French. And by that, we think in language. And so the hardest part of learning a language isn't the vocabulary, it isn't, the words, it's how does this language think? And getting behind that. Now, depending on what you want to get into with games, that might not even be something you need to follow up on. You can enjoy and understand video games without knowing how to build them. That's one of the great things about them. Because I come at stuff from more of a game study side, as opposed to a practical game design, even on, because I look at a lot of like cultural influence and things like that. That's actually at the academic portion of this yesterday, I presented a thing comparing early Dungeons and Dragons and American imperialism, and how the evolution of it can mimic ours, and the importance of being good custodians of something that maybe is better than it was originally intended to be. So I understand games on a different way than him. So what you're looking for with games, there's a lot of different levels of understanding them. And I think that's part of also what that journey is. I've looked at programming. My dad is a programmer. My brother is a programmer. I look at my brother's paycheck and compare it to mine and wish I was a programmer sometimes. But at the end of the day, that's just not how I'm wired. I'm an academic, so I look at just a different level of understanding of games. And then there's the people who just play them.
Totally.
It's, so what kind of understanding of games were you kind of more wondering?
Well, because I marvel at the way these guys can just sit there and navigate games in a way that, they grew up with controls in their hands, and I'm fumbling around and I'm like worthless with these things, but they are like, they kind of understand the game before they even get it up.
That's a testament to an industry that has developed.
Yeah.
From where it started, even too.
Well, one thing I'm wondering, and maybe this is more of a question for you, Dennis. I'm not sure, but the marketability of games, when you're creating a game, how much do you go into it thinking solely for yourself? What do I enjoy? what am I gonna like? And I kind of liken it to music, like where there's songs that songwriters know have a hook.
Sure.
Right.
You know, there's a certain melody or a chord, succession is that what it's called?
Right.
A chord progression that they know is going to have some pull.
Sure.
So
I can answer
Yeah,
that.
that's definitely more of a him question.
I can answer
Okay.
that. Okay, so I'm in a life position where my full-time job is what I do because I do love writing web application kind of stuff. My brain is wired towards that as in a professional setting because it makes money. At least now it does. I've gotten better jobs over my history. A couple of years ago I would have not said that. I was almost in the hole. It was awful. But I found a good company that pays well for what I know how to do, which is, make websites and databases and stuff. So that, for me personally, my path in life and software, that's where I've set myself up, where I know that that's the steady paycheck, so I can express myself, my deeper self of entertaining and spreading joy through video games to other people. I'm able to do that with my heart, and whenever I can and want. I can express myself fully that way, rather than working on projects similar to it for a company and someone else's idea. So I've mentally been able to separate I might not fully be in love with writing website software, but I know how to do it very well. So I'm going to make money off of that, and then I have the freedom of making whatever I want. I don't have to be marketable. So Kingdom Bash here, me wearing this shirt even today is, I don't want to say it's a farce, but I'm not living or dying on this hill. Or sorry, I wouldn't die on this hill. How would I say this? I wouldn't
You wouldn't
die.
survive on that paycheck.
I wouldn't survive on this paycheck.
Yeah.
I cannot survive on this paycheck. Yet. That would be cool if I could. But I do the websites to feed the family, and the games are my passion. True. Where someone who wants to start to make an actual career with it, I suppose, would need to be able to come up with an idea that should be popular based on many factors that are likely available and you can really analyze the market on, and design a damn good new idea. That would be the way to break out and make money with it. It's tricky.
Could I add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was actually going to ask you next.
Yeah, I mean, it's art versus business, right?
Right.
There's a lot of games out there that are made on Steam every month. There's
Mhm.
I don't know, thousands, right? So very few make money, right? So for a lot of people, it's just a passion. It's a hope. It's like a lottery type of thing, right? Some people figure out the formula and they get it on the first hit, or on the second hit, and they do well. I was watching this video about the guy who made Choo Choo Charlie, right? It's this horror game. They took the kids love the horror stuff, right? Like Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff. So because of that, people realized, hey, there's this market there. So people like nostalgia. So he took basically Thomas the Tank Engine and made it into this spider monster. He made this video. He used Unreal Engine actually.
Yep.
And he made a video that went viral. I mean, and from that he got 500,000 wish lists, which is a huge number for an indie
Just
game.
count that
Right?
as people.
So
that's how many eyeballs have seen it.
Yeah, so he worked on it for a year. It came out. I mean, it's like a pretty cheap game and it's pretty short. But he probably made at least $1 million, right? So he took time off and he's figured out. But he knew, I'm gonna make a game that's gonna resonate with what people want, right? And that's part of it. So and it's not like he sold out. He was still it's very much an art for him and creativity. He didn't have some marketing department saying, hey,
Right.
do this or this, you know? I've seen a lot of games where marketing department, like my friend was on this game at EA, and for like 5 years, and it was supposed to be an awesome game, but every time another competitor came out, the marketing department said, oh no, we need this we need this bullet point. So they were kind of changing, marketing was driving the game design and changing and pivoting. And the game never came out. It was a Command and Conquer game called, I think, Tiberium. It was a first-person shooter or squad shooter. Well, it was going to be a first-person shooter, but then because Halo did the squad thing, they were like, oh, now it's got to be this squad shooter. So for 10 years, he was working on games that never came out.
Right.
At LucasArts, at EA, you know,
Yeah.
because of they were for different reasons.
For different
Yeah.
reasons, games will be either amazing and succeed or die and fail.
Yeah.
And the market ebbs and flows. It's yes.
And it's a time thing sometimes too. You know, or the state
time
that it
and
was
money
releasing.
and
Yeah.
manpower.
Yeah, you
resources.
look at it, I mean, the two big examples of, like, for lack of a better word, shit shows that turned into amazing games. You have Cyberpunk 2077 or No Man's Sky that
Yeah.
were kind of
Sure.
messed up when they first came out. Like, they were nowhere near the promise. And that was like, and a lot of people were disappointed. There were a lot, you know, in both games. And part of it was because they couldn't get what they visioned out in the time that the consumers wanted. Like, they would have had to have kept working on it for like 2 more years afterwards, but it would already been delayed. And especially some of these companies, I don't know about the people who made No Man's Sky, but CD Projekt Red, who did Cyberpunk, is a publicly held company. So the delays and things like that were starting to affect stockholders. And so they were like, we just have to get this game out. And it was,
It's the
it's not
stockholders
great.
and then also the employees of the company. If the
Yeah.
project has to go on longer, they
They burn out.
imagine
Yeah.
the people burn out, but imagine like the financial resources to run a team of 1,000
Yeah,
people that should be well paid because
Yeah.
they're doing technical stuff
yeah,
to make this game that is a crazy universe.
yeah,
All those numbers that are moving around all the time.
yeah.
It is truly it's about the timing
Yeah.
and resources and stuff. It's one of the challenges that I face because I don't have quite a lot of friends that dabble in this at all. I don't know how to make friends, I guess. I do watch peers of mine that I watched 10 years ago have stuff that it's now out because they had a team that they could work on a vision together with. And this is not I'm not crying. I just have an itchy eye. I'm working on this solo, but I in a way want to. I don't want to work with a team on it, so it's a labor of love, and I guess that's my weakness. Because I definitely could make my vision happen sooner if I had help, but I think it's part of it is also the journey of it.
Well, and I think it also,
I enjoy the process.
right, I mean, it sounds almost like meditative for you.
Yes.
And the thing with with a lot of these modern technology-based art forms, video games, you look at the end of a big-time video game, and the credits are longer than a Marvel movie. And like they've got more people and more effects and the same kind of they're key grips and all that, nonsense. And so it's these huge things, but then you also have that diluted vision. Because a movie isn't just the writer. The writer has a script, then the director has a vision, and then the cinematographer has an idea, and then the actors interpret. And so what was originally one idea then becomes a collaboration. And when that works, that's amazing. And I think that's the risk sometimes, because you look at a very tightly, if you have a very, an auteur kind of mindset, you want as little little people messing that up for you.
Right.
You know, and I think that's one of the, even on the role-playing game side, although there are no success stories on the making millions of dollars, I don't think, that ship is long. Well, and Hasbro owns that, so
Right.
yeah, there's not really much room in that world for that. But you have these larger projects that maybe don't have as coherent and tight an artistic vision, but are great games. Dungeons & Dragons is built by committee at this point, and it's built by fan committee. Like, a lot of fan input goes into it, and it kind of loses some of the character that maybe it had, just like anything else that kind of gets built by committee. Whereas you look at some of these indie games, and it's just the same thing in the video world, like Kingdom Bash is Matt.
Yeah.
That is purely him.
I've had people come up to me, the Kingdom Bash guy?
Yeah.
The Kingdom Bash guy, right? Without my shirt on. Like,
Yeah.
Kingdom Bash guy? I'm like, yeah, what's up?
And that's that's him. Whereas maybe Cyberpunk.
Developers.
Yeah,
Anonymous,
there's
faceless.
there's a few people that you might know the names of, but for the most part, it's a committee, and it's both amazing art forms, but completely different experiences, and also completely different like the music thing. It's the difference between a solo artist and a group. There's different. It's why musicians a lot of times go solo, is because the different visions can compete, and so they want to go solo or form a different band. And it's an art form. It is 100% an art form, and has.
Video games are art.
They are. They 100% are, and I will defend.
Even the dummiest dumb games like Flappy Bird.
Game design.
Still art.
Game design is
I hate
art.
to say it.
It is, and it follows the same rules as art. It has the same strengths and advantages as art, and it has the same meaning as art. Games. That is something that video games can kind of, people don't realize, is that video games have the ability to help people figure the world out. And the design can help you figure the world out. And that's one of the things I love about games. And that's what I love about role-playing games. But that's a different story. And if I teach that class again, you can all audit it for half credit price. But it's... or come to next year's academic conference when I do yet another D&D proposal. That's the thing with all these games. They are an art, and I think they are not taken seriously as an art. They're looked at as a toy and money. Yeah,
the bigger businesses.
The bigger businesses
So,
look at it, from that side. Even a EA, or maybe not EA, but some bigger company, if they thought Kingdom Bash was something that they could make $1 million off of, they'd try to buy you out.
They would have stolen it already.
Or stolen it, yeah.
With a couple employees on the side could make a stupid side project called Kingdom Rashers.
Yes.
And destroy my trademark.
Empire
blow me
Bash.
out of the water, right?
Yeah.
And just sink every idea that I've ever made. But no, I'm doing something very unique. I'm doing my version of a game that I want to play. Mm-hmm. And I think so. Yeah, we keep bouncing back and forth between, is this a business thing or is this a passion thing? And yes, I
the answer is yes.
It can be both.
either.
It can be either or both.
Yeah, and
For some it's both.
Yeah.
For too many, it's business only. Because they can't express themselves, but it's a job. Or you're me, and I'm fortunate that I can afford that. My hobby is that I can make galaxies happen, which I think is exactly how I want to spend my free time. Like expressing that seems fun to me. So
It's just really interesting to me as
Yeah.
to who likes what games and
yeah,
and what transfixes my young friends for hours on games. And like one of the things that I've learned as a father of two boys who were very competitive on almost every level. They compete on brushing their teeth. They have to make that way. And it used to drive me crazy because I'm a teamwork guy. I'm like that's my kind of passion is like,
Yeah.
all right, let's get together and let's figure this out. Let's make this work. And finally, I found a game, and we're talking like 55, could it be? No, 40, 35 years ago, say, 35 years ago. I tripped on a game called Silkworm,
okay.
where there was a tank and it was a helicopter. And one person plays the tank, one person plays the helicopter, and they're working together against the common enemy. And it's like, oh my God. So instead of like being at each other and having one of my sons be like just pissed off for the rest of the day because he lost,
Yeah.
I had my two boys working on the same team.
Yeah.
We went on an adventure
To me,
together.
that was freaking genius.
Yeah.
Right.
And now, like 30 years, they're in their 40s. So 35 years later, they still talk about it. And they just found it released,
Wow.
released on, I don't know.
Yeah, right, one of the-
Anyway, they found Silkworm. They're in their 40s and they have their own families. And they're saying, I found Silkworm.
Let's play.
Yeah. And they got it and they bought it.
You've touched on something that I've talked about a lot in classes I've taught on game design or game studies, and it's the educational abilities, and we'll be wrapping up in a minute, but
My buddy being in trouble.
but yeah, the thing is, games also have you have to learn a game. Games are systems. So systems, you have to learn a system to be able to use that system. And so Silkworm, to succeed, the person who does the helicopter has to learn how to be the helicopter. The person who's got the tank has to learn how to be the tank. So you learn things. And then if the game is cooperative, you learn cooperation. The competitive games, you learn competition. And both are very valuable, because I think, you do need a little bit of both.
My game is both.
Exactly. And,
Okay.
it's...
I have my final pitch on this idea.
Okay, and so when, that's something that I think people don't realize about games, is that there is learning involved. And while it isn't sometimes the right lessons, although science is very clear, video games do not make people violent.
Yes.
But you can, you can teach different concepts with it. And if you put different people in the games that maybe somebody might recognize, like that, one of the other research interests I have is representation in games, and like looking at, who is in that game. The fact that people were telling on themselves when that Lord of the Rings TV show came out, and they were like, you can't have a black elf. Why the fuck not? Who cares? And it's like, but the thing is, like, that was different, but do it, and
It's
and
what
I
got
think,
me into Star Trek. I saw Tuvok and Voyager,
and I was like, oh,
I love to.
what is this?
Yeah, and that's a thing, also a thing to keep in mind from game design is, what are you promoting? What ideas are you promoting? And I'll say my quick little piece and then give you kind of the closing thing. I was saying yesterday that, when I was talking about Dungeons and Dragons and, American imperialism, it sounds absolutely
Got deep.
batshit.
God, you missed that.
And
Look it up on YouTube.
but it's true. The early game had had some very problematic thoughts on race, had some very problematic thoughts on gender, had an end game that you were carving out a wilderness of savage tribesmen, and bringing civilization to them. Very Manifest Destiny kind of stuff. That's gone away in Dungeons and Dragons. For the most part. There's still problematic stuff in it. Because there's problematic stuff in culture, and role-playing games are a cultural thing. Video games too, so what kind of ideas is your video game promoting? And sometimes it's just absurd, dumb fun, and that's fine, but the something as funny as like, what color is this character? Or is this a boy? Is this a girl? People losing their stuff when they found out Samus from Metroid was a woman. Like, that was unheard of in like 1987. They were like, it's a girl? Wait, I've been playing this game and I've been a girl? Like, dude, who cares? And yeah, so. All right.
Why I make games?
Why
I built the game that I did. I made the game to play with my friends. It's like truly, it's like, because it's my passion project, I made it to play with my friends. And that started 10 years ago. So I was still out of college and I still had friends close by and all that stuff. No one had kids at this point. Life has moved on since then, but so I say that because I've slowed down development and I've been pursuing different game ideas up to this point. So today's been kind of a fun resurgence experiment to see if I still like doing this, and I do. I had 3 guys come up to the booth maybe an hour or 2 ago, and having never seen the game, picked it up, played a couple rounds with me, kind of coaching them through it. And they had picked up and learned the mechanics well enough that I could trash talk them a little bit. And they got jazzed up and they said, all right, gang up on him.
Nice.
And it provided for me a really, like, I don't get joy like this very often. It was very exciting, interesting to be able to play the game that I built. I know how the numbers move around. I know how the characters move. I know every little pixel and what everything's doing there. To have invited these 3 people who've never seen it before, sit down, play this game, challenge me, and have it ebb and flow and felt like a good fight. That to me was so interesting. Like, that experience, that interaction with it is why I make games. I found very much, that was a lot of joy right there.
What platform is your game on, sir?
My game, Kingdom Bash, is on Steam right now.
Okay.
But I would love to, I want to reach out to Nintendo when I have my pitch like ready, and how cool would it be to have a video game on a Nintendo console? That's another dream part of that. Being able to be like, here it is.
And what are the rest of the dreams for Kingdom Bash as we sign off? What's the future of Kingdom Bash? Or your gaming in general?
Or is there? Yeah. I plan on releasing it. I don't know when. Hopefully, it would be maybe smarter to do it sooner. It's about that timing thing, where by the time I already started making it, my style of game already fell out. There's such a generational shift, even in 10 years of gamers, perhaps you could say, and the technology behind it, where online play is a requirement. My game is local only.
Oh, okay.
But it's for that vision of being on the couch with your friend
Co-op.
and playing. That's and co-op or versus.
Yeah.
You can fight together or separate. I included both because You know, it's hard
Yeah.
to beat round 5 in my game. You need to have good help, or you'll all lose. You will fail. So it makes it very interesting even to bring it to events like this and see that when a group of 4 players that just picked it up beat it, I'm like, that was a pretty good job you did there. That's tough to do. I made it hard, Nintendo hard, and that interaction and seeing people play it and playing with them, that's what I was going for.
Well, thank you all for coming. We could keep talking.
Yeah, I could
And
ramble
it's
on.
funny, like, you know, I go to every panel I go to and they're like, we could be doing this for hours. I really do think we could be keeping this conversation going for hours. But we cannot. So go enjoy the last half hour of CycloneCon. Thank you all for being so fundamental in making this a success for us, for the university, for the students. You know, it's really given a nice
It's
little
gonna be a joyous
late
day.
semester shot in the arm of excitement on campus. So,
Congratulations.
Definitely coming next year, if you
Thank
have
you.
one.
Yes, definitely next year.
so, all right. Awesome.
Have a great day.
You too, man. That's good.
Yeah.
That felt good.
Yeah.